always get asked if I had a mentor growing up, or if if there were people that I looked up to or something like that. And I grew up in a divorced family. My family was divorced. I got into a lot of trouble when I was a kid, and so growing up, the person that I looked up to was just the person that was making the most amount of money and looked like they were having the most fun. And I know now, of course, that that's not who a mentor should be, but growing up and just kind of the perspective that you gain from the world, just going through life, you see money and fame as success, and getting away with things and doing that sort of stuff, and that's what I thought was, so the person I looked up to growing up changed every day, every week, depending on who was making the most money, like I said, and having the most fun. And as I got older, I started to realize that, especially when I got to college, I started realizing that there's so much more to life than that. And I started finding people, and I can't pick out any one person, but I started finding people throughout my life who started to kind of act the way that I would like to be, that I would like to act. And so there were people that I saw with their family, and it was just something different that I noticed, and I was like, wow, I love the way his daughter, loves him so much and really respects and listens to him. I love the way his wife, listens to him. I mean, that's cool. I didn't see that when I was growing up. Things like that. I started noticing little things like that, and I started taking little pieces of each person that I came in contact with that I liked, and started trying to implement them into my life. And APU, the school, Azusa Pacific University, has been a huge part of that because of the people that I was able to surround myself with while I was here. So I would say, yeah, I don't know any one person, but real quick story that I'll tell you about when I was in 6th grade. It was a teacher of mine that made a big difference on me. And he didn't know this until a later time. His name was Mr. Awa, and it was much later that he found out, after I had won some medals and things like that. But I was in 6th grade, and as you can imagine, I was pretty good at PE, and Mr. Awa was my PE teacher, and I always got A's in PE. I mean, never fails. I knew that was going to be my one A, so I could count on that one, and my mom would say, if you get an A, we'll take you out to dinner, or for every A you'll get $10. So I knew I was getting at least $10, for one A. And the rest of my grades weren't very good, so that was the one thing that kind of, helped me out a little bit. And I remember Mr. Awa used to give us, we used to get tests in PE, and we had to do reports in PE, and we'd have to do all these things, study these different sports and things and learn about them. And I used to hate that part of it. I mean, hate that part of PE. So I wouldn't do it. But then when we had to play basketball, or when we had to play badminton, or when we had to run or do anything like that, I was all about it. And so Mr. Awa failed me in PE. And that was my first time ever failing PE. And I remember being devastated. And I mean, just devastated, not just because I failed PE and it was my only A, and it was just like it was like a slap in the face. I felt like he was telling me I wasn't that good of an athlete, but I knew that my mom and dad were going to be disappointed, and it was like, the only thing that I knew I could get an A in, you can't even do that, so you're really a failure now. And so I was just devastated, and I remember Mr. Awa took the time and called me in after class and kept me in after school, and he said, Bryan, sat me down, he said, let's talk. And I was, of course, this angry kid, all upset, didn't want to talk, attitude and all that kind of stuff. And he said, what's the problem? And I said, well, you gave me an F in PE. What do you mean, what's the problem? You gave me an F. Why'd I get an F? And he said, well, did you do the reports? And I said, no. And he said, well, did you pass the tests? And I said, no. And he said, well, what makes you think you're going to get an A? And I said, well, I'm the fastest kid, and I can beat everybody in basketball, and I can do this, and I can do that. And I said, I dressed out every day. And he said, Bryan, he said, I know that this is hard for you to understand now. He's like, one day you're going to understand this. And I know that you feel like your world's coming crashing down on you now, but trust me, it's going to be okay. And he said, I know you're probably going to get grounded, and your parents are going to be upset and all this kind of stuff. But he said, trust me. It's gonna be okay, and one day you'll understand. But he's like, I've got to get you to understand now that you cannot do, you can't expect sports and your athletic ability to carry you through life. You can't get through life just on that. And I remember not understanding it then, like you said, but now where I'm at in life, and you know, looking at possibly, you know, in 4 years having it be the end of my career, actually, you know, just being faced with the fact that any day tomorrow could be the end of my career. You know, I could walk down the street and break my leg tomorrow, and having to realize that I'm going to have to be able to fall back on something. You know, I can't tell you how much of an impact that one F made on me in my life. I mean, Mr. Auer is just one of those guys I've never forgotten, and I can't remember all my teachers' names. In fact, I don't remember most of them, even my college professors. But for some reason, I remember Mr. Auer for giving me that F, and I remember the lesson that he taught me. And I have to tell you that that seed that he planted back then, you know, exactly what he said was going to happen happened. You know, I completely understand now what it was that he was talking about, and I have to thank him for that, and I always thank him for that. Every time I do an interview or anything like that, I always tell people about that story because it really made an impact on me.